You know, when my wife Mila was pregnant, she had these weird cravings of pairing pickles with chocolate, and she had these peaches, the canned peaches every day. And now that we've had our baby, she still has a sweet tooth, but wants to stay healthy, right? So I've created a recipe that's so good you'd swear it's bad for you. It's a rich, decadent, red velvet beet cake that's the perfect way to curb your craving. Our beet cake begins, like many others, with a little bit of butter. And what we're going to do, I've got room temperature butter that's softened. I'm going to break it up with my whisk, and we cream it with a little bit of sugar. Not too much, but this is a great way to start any cake recipe. So we break up the granules of sugar in the butter, and I'm going to cream it with my other fat, which is heart-healthy olive oil. And what this does is it keeps the cake moist and also allows me to use less butter. So it's still rich, still the right ratio of fat to sugar in our cake recipe, but a little bit healthier. We're going to get all our fat and sugar creamed up together. This is usually how we start a standard cake recipe, by creaming the fat and the sugar together. You can do this with a stick blender as well, but if we're on a health kick, it's good exercise, by hand. Well, when you do tricks like this, like making a cake with beets and with olive oil, and you feel better about yourself, even if you eat the whole cake, at least you justify it in your own brain, saying, I've at least consumed half a pound of beets and heart-healthy olive oil. So it's all good. At this stage, 2 eggs, and we go 1 egg at a time, so it gets nicely incorporated. There's egg number 1. We get into it, nice and smooth. You can see that the sugar is nicely incorporated. No more granules on the side here, and then 1 more egg right in to our wet bowl. It's a standard wet bowl, dry bowl. My favorite way to bake. 1 more egg here, and you can already see a batter start to come together. We get on the sides, get it nicely incorporated. You know, oftentimes people are intimidated by baking, but it can be so easy if you just kind of respect each step, keep your ratios correct, just make sure everything is incorporated as you go. So we've got our sugar, our butter, our olive oil, our 2 eggs, and now I'm ready for a little bit of sour cream. And the sour cream gives a nice tang. You know, a great cake stays moist and balanced. A little bit of sweetness, a little bit of tang, and then we'll get some richness later with some cocoa. So we get the sour cream here, and then a good quality vanilla extract. Be generous. If it's the good quality stuff, be generous. In, like that. And now we move on to the star of the show, the beets. So the beets here, you can see I've got a medium-sized beet, and I've boiled them for about 35 to 40 minutes. You can test with a paring knife to see if they come out no resistance, you know they're soft. And really, because I'm going to puree these beets and put them into my wet bowl and make it part of the cake, you can't really overcook the beets. So make sure they're really nice and soft so that I puree them with no resistance. So I've got them here. They boiled, I peeled them, and I get them all into a food processor. And the beets are a great way to get some nutrients into a cake, to give it great color, so we get that red velvet feel. And of course, I'm using less sugar because of the beets. The beets have a lot of natural sugar. So I've got it in my food processor, and we could start to pulse. We want it nice and smooth. And from time to time, you can stop, open up your food processor, scrape down the sides so that we get even pulsing here. You can't just use food coloring and say it's red velvet all of a sudden. So here I've used a real ingredient like beets and got the same color. So now I can proudly say this is red velvet. Look, that's beautiful like that. The blade was getting quieter. It wasn't working so hard because it's nice and smooth. Look, that's the kind of puree I want for this recipe. You can see how a beet puree like that will give me a red velvet cake feel, but in a healthy way. I'm only going to use about a cup. And then the rest, that's for baby Cairo. That's healthy baby food. I'll leave this for later. Homemade baby food, very easy. So I mix this in here. Look at the color now. You can see the red velvet happening. And it's healthy, less sugar. I love this recipe. Look at this. We've got our wet bowl. Amazing. Now our dry bowl starts with a little bit of cocoa powder. That cocoa powder is going to give us the chocolatey feel without the actual fat. So we get the cocoa powder in our dry bowl. A little bit of all-purpose flour. Okay. some baking soda, some salt. I want to season my batter so I taste the cocoa and the beet. Baking powder. There you go. Easy. Dry bowl separately like that. Here you go. And then, like I always say with any batter, a cake, a pancake, a cupcake, I never like to overmix. So slowly introduce the dry into the wet, and we're just going to fold it in just to incorporate. I never like to overmix a cake batter because I want to keep it light, I want to keep it airy. You know, anything chocolatey works, always. One time on a Valentine's Day menu in my restaurant, I had a set menu and the dessert was not a chocolate dessert. And you would be amazed at the rage that ensued. You don't mess with chocolate. When you need to get out of the doghouse, when you need to really seduce someone, chocolate wins. And here I've used cocoa powder instead of a high-fat chocolate, but it'll have the same effect. And then you can see here I've got these ramekins that I've lightly greased, and I put them right into the ramekins, this beautiful batter. Don't go all the way up because the baking powder and the baking soda, of course, will allow this batter to rise. So maybe 2/3 of the way up, let the batter rise. Here you go. I've got these two reserved on the side because I can freeze this batter and cook it from frozen. It'll take a bit longer, but what a great thing to have at the go anytime. I'm just going to put some plastic wrap on top so that they don't get any freezer burn, but they're there any given night. When my wife Mila has her cravings, I pop one from the freezer into a hot oven and she's going to have the fresh cake. But today, I've got these two ready to go straight away, 350 degrees, 25 to 30 minutes, and then you should check with a paring knife as well. You find a way to justify eating in a way that you wouldn't normally. We were pregnant as a household. So if she was eating pickles and chocolate were on the counter, sure, I'd grab the pickles and chocolate, try that out. We'd order pizza at 2 a.m. and polish it off with a tub of ice cream. So yes, we were pregnant together, and that's the way it should be. These beautiful cakes have been out of the oven for about 5 minutes. I wanted to cool them slightly so that I could easily get it out of these ramekins. Now the best way to see when your cake is done is to go in with a paring knife, just go into a little crack and make sure there's no remnant of batter on your knife. They're cooked through perfectly. Then you can run your knife around the ramekin as they've cooled to loosen the cake and then kind of ease it out. Just like that, on a plate. Chocolatey, amazing. I've got some Greek yogurt here full of protein that I've sweetened with a little bit of honey. So a little bit of tang, a little bit of sweetness from the honey, just on top. Look at that. I like how it pops with the color too. Some fresh berries, of course, why not? And then I want you to check out these beet chips that I made. Our recipe is on the website. These are really, really cool. Put these here. Awesome texture, like that. And then you can even drizzle on a little more honey on top. Natural sweetness. It's honey for my honey. I mean, for a beet cake, it's luxurious, it's elegant, it's almost plated like a restaurant-style dessert. It's creamy, and there's textural contrast. Looks delicious. I think the cake looks great, but I'm not the judge and jury here. My beautiful wife, Mila, will decide. Mmm. Rich, chocolatey.
Not very sweet.
You like it?
It's healthy.
It is healthy. The Greek yogurt gives a nice creaminess. The baby doesn't care much for it, but you know what? I think it's a winner. Yeah. There you have it. I bought myself another couple weeks of a happy marriage.
Maybe one.
I'll take it.